Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us to what I said is our fifth edition of our Traveling Thursdays. And some of you in Ontario or other parts of our country, maybe in the prairie regions, are going to laugh at me when I say it's cold in Vancouver today. So we're glad we're inside, and we can actually pretend we're going to travel to the tropics tonight. So again, thank you for joining us. It's fabulous that you are with us tonight. My name is Petra. I'm the owner of Flying Sea Dive Adventures, and tonight we are traveling to Curacao. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an overview of what we're doing. I'll say a couple of words to our company, and then we will dive right into Curacao. The top 10 reasons why we should be traveling to Curacao, go diving in Curacao. That will include diving in Curacao and where to stay in Curacao, what else to do in Curacao, as well as some COVID rules and protocols that we all want to know. We have time at the end for question and answers that you can type into the chat. And then we also announce where we will go next time. So a couple of words to our company. Those of you who maybe are joining us for the first time and are not as familiar with us, there's a team of 6 of us here. You can see the pictures. Some of them are with us on the screen here tonight. We have been in business for almost 25 years. Next year's our 25th anniversary. And dive travel is all that we do. So there is over 70 years of experience and expertise in this group of women. And we love sending people diving and traveling and planning your trips. We have over 40 destinations that we represent, liveaboards, dive resorts, dive operators, great relationships all over the world. So we can put together any package that you like. Diving in combination with soft adventure and sightseeing, that's what we do. We can issue our own tickets. That's what IATA appointed means. And we do group and individual travel, custom trips, as long as you like, wherever you like. And many of you have either booked with us before in individual trips or have joined a group. And we're very grateful for that. So without further ado, this is an iconic image of Curacao. I'm going to hand it over to Brian. Brian Horn is actually a fellow Canadian. Hi, Brian, fellow Canadian who actually sits in beautiful, warm Curacao.
So yes, my name is Brian. I have a PR and media company here in Curacao for the last about 7 years now. But I've been involved in the diving for probably about at least 20, if not more. The great thing about diving is for me anyways, it's my passion. I love it. And I really just can't get enough of it, which is one of the reasons why I moved to Curacao several years ago. So really, as Petra pointed out, we're going to talk about Curacao. We're going to go over the top 10 reasons to come to Curacao, to think, plan, and even hopefully dream about Curacao tonight. And then we can do a Q&A afterwards and talk about a lot of the questions that you may have as we go through the presentation. So let's dive into Curacao. I'm going to play a quick video here. first things I wanted to talk about is the fact that here on Curacao, there is plenty of things to do. Scuba diving is generally considered the #1 thing to do. We're a little bit biased about that, of course. But there's so many other things to do here in Curacao, and there's really no right way to experience any of it. So you can really make it your own experience while you're here on Curacao, and really try to embrace the culture and the lifestyle that's here on Curacao. Just kind of sink into it and try to forget all the troubles, or at least enjoy the experience while you're here. A few things that you can do here on Curacao, just to talk about it quickly, is the fact that, Petra showed you an awesome, iconic image of downtown, which I placed right there in the center. The downtown core of Willemstad is absolutely beautiful, but it's also very historically significant because it is a UNESCO heritage site. And all the buildings are colored for a particular reason, because they used to be all white at a particular moment. And then the governor decided that he owned a paint store, so he needed to sell some paint. And hence all the colors became significant here on Curacao for the last couple hundred years. But of course, there's fresh fruit markets, there's all different types of conservation activities, there's national parks that you can walk and hike and bike through. And of course, up there, you've also got the amazing sunsets that you can enjoy a nice beverage to. Another reason to come to Curacao is it's very close to my heart, and we're probably going to touch on this a couple times in this presentation, is sustainable and responsible tourism. At the end of the day, we need to protect our natural resources, whether we're in Canada or whether we're here on Curacao. And our coral reefs and our natural environment here, also on land, is very, very important to the community, and very, very close to my heart. And we've been involved through the dive industry, and I'm just going to, put a big umbrella over that, that we've shared that responsibility to conserve and positively impact the nature here on Curacao through different activities, such as, a very popular topic is lionfish hunting. But we've taken that to the next level, where we've actually, there's some organizations that have developed a sustainable method of not only catching them, but also taking them to market. And that's a very important aspect to the lionfish epidemic, you could call it, or the spread of lionfish, because as they hunt, we're taking them off the reef, but we're also putting them back into the food chain through grocery stores and through restaurants, which is a pretty cool thing. It's taken a little while to develop that, since 2019. No, 2009. Sorry, 2009. And then now we're in 2021, so it's taken quite some time to develop that sustainable food chain. But also, coral restoration is also a very important topic, and also the making sure that we're cleaning the reefs on a regular basis. But I'll touch on that in a little bit. Bottom line is that it's our job to conserve the ocean, so that we can create something that's sustainable for future generations. So we're really taking that to heart here on Curacao. As you can see here, there's me and some of my colleagues that are doing coral restoration. And right now, coral restoration is outplanted close to 10,000 fragments back onto the reef, creating, as you can see in this next picture, a very, very beautiful and healthy shallow reef environment for colonies to gather. Very, very cool. And that's only about a 5-year process at this point. So I can't wait to see what happens in 10 years. One of the biggest questions that I always get asked, and a very valid concern, is being out of the hurricane system. You know, Curacao is a year-round destination, so it's not just about the typical vacation periods of anywhere between, let's say, August or pardon me, September and April, but it's year-round. So you can come to Curacao year-round and enjoy everything that Curacao has to offer, because it has a 2-degree swing in temperature. It rains maybe about 22 centimeters a year. Pardon me, 22 millimeters a year. And, you know, it's always sunny, which makes it such a nice environment to come to. Technically, we're located about 12 degrees north of the equator, so that's the reason why our swing in temperature is very little. Now, Curacao is a budget destination, and what I mean by that is not just about the flights. Out of Canada, now that's something that maybe Petra can help me out with. I'm not exactly sure what the lift points or access to Curacao is from the Vancouver area, but from let's say the Greater Toronto area, you've got Air Canada, you've got WestJet, you've also got Sunwing, and believe it or not, you've also got American Airlines that connects through Miami. So there's plenty of options to fly to Curacao. And
just to interrupt you there, Brian, because you're asking me to help you out. From Vancouver, no direct flight, so we would go through Toronto and connect either on an Air Canada or WestJet flight.
Thank you very much.
And that's with all other cities too, whether it's Calgary or Seattle or Los Angeles, we would all have to connect.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for that. So the reason I also say that it's a budget destination is really goes back to the first slide. You know, Curacao is an island that you can make it as luxurious as you want, or as inexpensive as you want. There's so many things to do, and it's so affordable to be on the street, to do things, get places, and you know, with round trip flights heading out of Canada, it makes it quite attractive. One of my favorite topics is obviously diving, and Forbes declared it in 2 or 3 years in a row now. So I'm it that Curacao is a must-dive destination, and the reason is because of the fact that Curacao has over 70 dive sites that are available, and there's always more to do and to explore. You can see here, here at Dive Curacao, we actually created a complete dive site guide with a map that includes directions on how to get there, also videos, descriptions of the dive sites, also historical significance of each and every dive site that is on the schedule. In fact, I think I've got up to about 76 dive sites now listed. I'm working towards 100. But these are the most popular, the most sought after dive sites that run from east to the west side. The biggest thing that these dive sites offer is a great amount of diversity. There's not one dive site. If you were to compare the east point of the island to the absolute west point of the island, they would be completely different. You have shore diving, access points, you have boat diving, a lot of boat diving, a lot of shore diving, and there's so much variety that goes up and down the southwestern coast, or the southeastern to the southwestern coast. There's not a lot of diving on the north side, simply because that's where the prevailing winds come from. So it makes it very, very difficult to dive on that side of the island. And there's not really any good access points there. Most of it is iron shore, so it makes it quite dangerous, let's say, to even attempt to do any shore diving on that side. This dive is one of my absolute favorites. I'm not going to say it is my absolute favorite, but it is absolutely one of my favorites. The Superior Producer, just to give you a little quick history on it, is the fact that it sunk in September of 1977. It's approximately 50 meters in length, and it's a freighter that was overloaded inside of the iconic area of Saint Anabai or Willemstad, right in the harbor. And then it got pulled out, and then it was allowed to sink. It took on a lot of water and sank pretty quickly, around 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the evening. It's a beautiful, beautiful shipwreck. It sits completely upright and no deeper than about 104 to 106 feet at its absolute bottom along the keel. It's an absolutely beautiful shipwreck that has more than a half a century of growth that is on there. And it's been rated as one of the top 5 dive sites, I think about 3 years in a row now, in the Caribbean. So it's an absolutely beautiful wreck to dive on if you get the chance when you come down. And I'm going to play you just a quick video on it so you can get a really good appreciation of what it is. We just cut this video a few days ago. I think it was last week. We released it. So this is pretty fresh. So as I said, conservation is a big priority here on Curacao. We've teamed up with Project Aware over the last almost 7 years, I guess, where almost, I'd say now about 16 dive sites along the southern coast have all been adopted. And since 2017, we've removed over 10,000 kilos of marine debris off these particular sites. We do not only cleanups on a regular basis, pretty much every weekend in normal times, but we also do a lot of education with local divers and also with tourists that come along. So we do a lot of community outreach when it comes to these cleanups. For anybody that has cameras that loves to take pictures, then you're in for a real treat when you come to Curacao as well, especially if you're a macro photographer, because there are so many small things to take into account. Frogfish, you've got Peterson cleaner shrimps, you've got trunk fish, as you can see in this picture coming up. Christmas tree worms. You can rattle off the list of what you want, and generally speaking, Curacao can absolutely deliver on that. But there's such amazing opportunities to take some beautiful memories home. So I mentioned about shore diving. Shore diving is an absolute pleasure to do here on Curacao. As I mentioned, there's so many great access points from a variety of different beaches that line the coastline. Casabao is a big favorite. Porta Marie is another favorite. These are all fantastic access points. Most of the hotels, such as Lions Dive, Go West Diving, so on and so forth, they all have very, very easy shore access with brilliant house reefs. These are not house reefs that you do a quick checkout dive on. These are house reefs that you want to spend hours on. It's absolutely fantastic to dive. So you can create a list of what you want to do, and you can really end up doing a lot of it, I think. As you can see in this next picture, how the access points are. And these are all generally house reefs that you're seeing. The top one here is from Lions Dive, Sunscape. You've got some other shore diving access points at a variety of different beaches like Marie Pampoon, Kokomo Beach. There's a lot to do. One of the best reasons to come to Curacao, and this just brings it full circle back to the original slide, is that there's everything here. And to talk about that, I can really dive much deeper into it. But there's not only world-class dive sites, but the immense amount of history and culture and diversity that is here on the island, including music, food. I mean, it's nonstop. So there, yeah, I can really go on, but it's amazing. So what I've done is I've put another quick video together, just to kind of really take a broad overview of the island, so it kind of brings everything full circle. And that also take into account all the events that happen here. So that pretty much sums up Curacao and the 10 reasons why you should come to Curacao. But I think there's even more reasons why you should come to Curacao. And it's really, it's an island at the end of the day, that you can really make it your own experience. And I think that needs to be stressed because there's so many things to do on Curacao. It's not your normal dive and vacation destination. When you talk about a lot of other destinations that are here, you're basically looking at destinations that are, maybe just eat, sleep, and dive, or very limited in terms of what you can do. But really, here you can do everything. On topside attractions after you come out of the water, for instance, ATV exploration or museums, or there's fresh fish markets, fantastic restaurants, as I mentioned earlier. But the restaurants, I'm just going to take a wild guess. I think there's something around 55 different cultures or different nationalities, let's say, that exist here on Curacao in a population of only about 160,000. So you can imagine the diversity here on Curacao, from different types of restaurants to what is just happening on the street. So I think it's one of those. Curacao is really an island that you can really fall in love with quickly because of nothing is ever the same when you hit the street. So I think we can turn it back over to Petra.
There have already been a few questions that have come in, so we will go through them. But first of all, thank you for the presentation and for making us envious for where you are right now. I think typically when we do our Traveling Thursdays, that's what happens. We all get to the point where we go like, okay, when can I go? And that was one of the comments here in the comment section, is like, when can I go? I want to go. So I just a couple of comments from my end too. I think many times Curacao sits in the shadow of its cousin Bonaire. A lot of divers will really know a lot about Bonaire, but Curacao is maybe a little undervalued sometimes. And what I want to say is, especially if you are have a partner who is not a diver, Curacao is such a great option because it, like Brian said, has already so much topside to offer that it's not just all about diving. Even though the diving is fabulous, it's not just all about diving. So Brian, I'm going to just start asking you all these questions that are coming in. And Michelle is asking, how many days do you recommend if you want to do all 3 ABC islands? And with that, obviously she means Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao.
Right. The short answer, I would say, 3 weeks, a week per island. And I don't even think that's enough. The issue, or the problem that I see with Curacao, is that there's so much to do that there's no way to see and do everything, which is also a good thing because it gives you a reason to come back. And then all of a sudden you're just like, wow, I forgot about doing that, so we got to go back, or whatever the case may be, or new topics will come up. To explore Curacao properly, and Bonaire and Aruba, I mean, I've spent a lot of time on Bonaire. I do fly over there quite regularly. Not right now, obviously, but I did, and I still will, because I love the island as well. I love the tranquility of it, but the reality is that I miss Curacao every time that I go away, because again, there's so many things to do. So to answer the question specifically, it really depends on how much time you have. That's what it really comes back to.
So while you just mentioned also traveling from one island to another, talk to us a little bit about COVID in the island and the restrictions of entering Curacao. Obviously, the island is open, which we can't say for every dive destination that we represent, but Curacao is open to visitors right now. Yep. But what are the restrictions and what is the situation with COVID on the island?
To answer the first part of the question, the island is 100% open to everybody. Everybody is welcome to come to Curacao. There are some protocols that are in place that need to be adhered to. So first of all, before leaving your home country, you need to have a PCR test complete. That has to be complete within 72 hours of getting on the plane. Get your test, submit it to the dicardcuracao.com through the immigration system. You upload it, and then you keep a copy with you so that when you get on the plane, everybody knows that you're negative. When you get to Curacao, you're cleared and you're welcomed and you're good to go. Now, when you're here on Curacao, there are protocols that are in place. And by that, I mean hand sanitizer has to be used on a regular basis when you go into any public area. Also, face masks need to be worn in any closed environment. We largely live outside here on Curacao. As you can imagine, all the bars, restaurants, so on and so forth, well, everything's outdoors. As you can see here with the image of downtown, that terrace is completely open. There's no indoor seating. Who wants to sit out inside anyways in air conditioning when you've got such a beautiful environment? The bottom line is that coming to a destination that is largely outdoors, largely sunny, 365 days of the year, and then when you have to go home, most countries, and I know Canada is definitely that way right at the moment, so is the United States, is that you have to get tested to go home. And that's very easy as well, because most of the major hotels that Petra represents has facilities in place to make sure that testing is available to you on site and delivered back to you within 24 hours before you get on that plane. So we all know you want to enjoy yourself. We all know that you want to take advantage of every second that you're here on Curacao. So everybody's trying to make it easy for you to adhere to the protocols, both on inbound as well as outbound.
That's good to know. And the island itself with COVID, did you mention that? You mentioned that to me earlier.
Yes, I don't have the current stats as of today, but I know that the numbers were very, very low. But as of yesterday, we had 0 infections, so that the rate is quite down. Had one variant detected on the island, and outside of that, everything is okay.
Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about the snorkeling on the island.
Well, there's such great snorkeling. Like every beach has access to snorkeling. And just talk about the shoreline of Curacao.
Right.
That really will set the stage for why snorkeling is so great here on Curacao. The fringing reef system here on Curacao is probably within anywhere from 50 to 100 feet away from the shoreline. That gives you really fantastic access to wonderful snorkeling opportunities. But that also goes in with the diving as well. We've got large schools of fish that are always around in most of the snorkeling and diving sites. But the snorkeling sites are like some famous ones, like Tugboat, as an example, is always a very popular site. There's a very shallow wreck of a tugboat. I think it's within about 12 to 15 feet, 3 to 5 meters. It's very, very beautiful. Lots of fish, lots of growth. We don't do any feeding of fish. So we don't, call them in through artificial means. They're just everywhere. And there's lots of great sponges, corals, that type of thing. We do protocols for environmental reasons about not touching, sunscreen use, et cetera, et cetera.
Fabulous. So shore diving and snorkeling, that lends to the question. There's a few questions here about comparing Curacao to Bonaire, and we know that Bonaire has all these drive-through tank stations, and you can pretty much dive 24/7 if you want to. Is that access as easy on Curacao, and rental gear obviously available from the various dive shops?
Absolutely, 100%. Buddy Dive on Bonaire and a few other dive shops have really got famous because of their drive-through fill stations. But let's say you're buying packages, and this is the way that I would recommend, and not just to do on a tank basis. Like your best value is going to be through buying packages. I mean, when you couple up the accommodation with the diving package, of course, shore diving is going to be in there. tank rentals are going to be in there, weights are going to be in there. And if you need gear, there's plenty of gear available through all the major dive shops. And all the dive shops that we both deal with are certified through the Curacao Tourist Board. So you're pretty much guaranteed quality and also adherence to sustainable tourism measures as well. Is there drive-throughs specifically? Not really. But what there is that, you know, there's several dive operations that you basically back your truck up to and load up tanks. So we take the drive-through to a little bit different measure, but you still get your tanks.
Great. And obviously there's boat diving available as well. So depending on the style of diving that people like, that's how they can do it. One question about hyperbaric chamber on the island?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a hyperbaric chamber on the island. There's been several over the years, but it's located at the hospital. There's trained hyperbaric technicians that are on staff, rotating 24/7. All that safety access is definitely available.
Questions about the wreck here. If it's a clean wreck / was it stripped before it was sunk? And with the proper course, can you actually explore inside the wreck?
I don't know details because the wreck was not artificially sunk. So I can tell you that today that yes, the wreck is clean, but it's more than 50 years old now, or it's close to 50 years old. I think 43 years now. But the reality is that wreck was overloaded inside of the harbor, and it was bound to Venezuela. The next destination, Curacao, was going to be Venezuela for Christmas, while they were taking Christmas goods to be sold in Venezuela. So when it got overloaded, it started coming over on one side, and the portholes were open. So started to take on water, started taking on more water. They tried to right the boat inside of the harbor, and then all of a sudden they couldn't do it anymore because it took on too much water. So they had to pull it out and then let it sink naturally onto the reef. So then, yes, it did get cleaned out very quickly. There was a lot of people that dove the wreck after that to clean it up, clean the goods out, of course, because there was some profit to be made. But after that, there was some environmental issues that were addressed.
A few questions about the seasonality in general. Like, is there a rainy season? You said earlier that it's outside the hurricane belt. And does Curacao get in season either whale sharks or humpbacks?
The first part of the question is that, yes, there's absolutely seasons here on Curacao. There's a windy season, which is generally, January, February, maybe going into March. So it's more like the winter months. We also have typically a rainy season throughout December and also coming into January. You can't quote me on any of this because the weather is changing so rapidly. The one thing that we can count on, generally speaking, is we have a new season here on Curacao, or our own unique season, which is called sweaty season. And sweaty season is basically through the end of August, September, and the beginning part of October. And the reason we call it sweaty season is because of the fact that the temperatures don't necessarily go up. As I mentioned, we only have about a 2-degree swing. But what happens is that all the prevailing easterly winds disappear. It's hurricane season in other parts of the Caribbean, mostly in the north. So what happens is all that wind that we would normally be getting here, those trade winds, automatically get sucked up north, and then it becomes very humid, where we don't typically have that any time of the year.
Yeah, the other question was about whale sharks or humpbacks. Any larger pelagics in certain seasons?
Yeah. So I've seen whale sharks here. I've seen humpbacks here. I've seen, believe it or not, I've seen sunfish here. We have typical sightings of dolphins and rays and things like that. But when you specifically talk about humpbacks or whale sharks, really, they're more in the winter and spring, and we don't get a lot of sightings. We do get regular sightings every year but they typically happen to be one or two that get sighted. We also have some other, I've seen killer whales here on Curacao on the north side, but it's one of those things where you just don't know what you're going to see here on Curacao, and it's a very, very chance sighting to see it. I can't honestly say that we have a season for those types of pelagics, but they do come here.
So it's basically not the destination for it, but you'll be in for a surprise if that happens, right?
And yeah. I've seen like schools of giant mantas, and by schools I mean like 3 or 4 in a group that with 20-foot wingspans.
Yeah, and you just can't count on them, right? Yeah.
And I was teaching this is going back quite some years, but I was teaching a DSD. It was the first DSD or the first underwater experience for this person. And we were only in 15 feet of water, and this giant manta just swam right over top of us. And it became really dark, and you look up and it's like, wow, like sorry if I offend anybody, but no person on their first dive deserves to see a manta.
Yeah. Well, couple of questions about car rentals here. So yes, there is car rental on the island, and definitely depending on where you stay, you either want to have it the whole time or at least 1 or 2 days to do a little bit exploring. There's a couple of questions about, is there the same theft from vehicles as on Bonaire, which I believe is no longer a big problem on Bonaire. It's just, it used to be an issue, but it's being dealt with.
Curacao is a really safe island, generally speaking. With anything, I always provide advice. Don't take your passports. Don't take your cell phones. Leave anything of any significant value other than possibly some cash and an ID of like your driver's license to take it to a dive site or a snorkeling site. Leave right. Your car open. Leave nothing in there. Take a little bit of a dry bag or a dry can to put your car key in. Other than that, I would say just like anywhere else, you don't set yourself up.
Yeah, some common sense when you go and leave a rental vehicle in a parking lot somewhere, right? Yeah. The question about if there are all-inclusive packages and that include food, drink, accommodation, diving. I want to say inclusive packages or with all resorts, you can always get your meals in, diving, accommodation, even a car rental. There is a couple of all-inclusive resorts. Sunscape is an all-inclusive resort, like what we know is typical all-inclusive, meaning even your drinks are included. Brian, probably a little bit more details on that.
I think you're absolutely right. They opened up a new one, which is affiliated to Sunscape, which is called Dreams. The old Curacao Hilton. So yeah, they're 100% all inclusive. Of course, you have to add the dive package. You have to add the car rental to that. But as soon as you step through the door, everything that you could possibly want, need, or desire is going to be provided from a food or accommodation perspective.
And we would package those things up. So depending on what you're looking for, right, we will provide you with complete packages, including flights, wherever you are located. Absolutely. Let me see here. There's a couple more. Do private beaches restrict access?
No. Most of the beaches here on Curacao are open to everybody. There's private beaches. And as I mentioned, Casabella is one, Blue Bay is another, Porta Maria is another. These are, cost you $10 or 10 guilders, which is like $6 for a carload to go in. You may have to pay for a lounge chair. Our beaches are open to everybody.
Okay.
There's no exclusive style.
Great. Are there malaria or other mosquito-borne illnesses?
No,
not known for. And then how expat friendly is Curacao? Obviously, you're one.
Very friendly. We welcome everybody.
And is the island handicap friendly?
Yes. maybe not in 100% cases, but any of the hotels, bars, restaurants, things to do, depending on your degree or depending on the degree, it's open access. So whether it's wheelchair or whatever, it's no problem.
Okay, I think we've covered pretty much, if not all, but at least most of the questions that have come in. So I just brought up the last slide here to tell you about our next destination, which is going to be Egypt and the Red Sea in 2 weeks. That will be presented by myself and our colleague Rick Heidel. I've been to Egypt and the Red Sea 7 or 8 times, so lots of images that we can share and knowledge there. We've got our email address there. If you have not yet subscribed to our newsletter, then please do that. That will give you access to the registration as quickly as everybody or most people will get it earlier than normal. The share the link to subscribe, that should be a link that you can click on the screen, and you should be able to subscribe that way. Otherwise, go to our website, and there's links all over the place to the Traveling Thursdays. There is a schedule of upcoming webinars there, and we typically open up the registration about a week prior to the event. I think we're going to close it with that. Brian, thank you so very much for all the knowledge and the images. And then you can review the questions as well, and share it with your friends. We still have room for more people to join us. And again, thank you for joining us. If you have a suggestion of a topic that you want us to list or cover going forward, just let us know. We are looking forward to welcoming you back in 2 weeks. Again, thank you, Brian. Have a nice warm dive on us until we can actually come and leave our countries again. We will travel from our couches. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Brian, thank you for being here for us.
Hope to see you soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.